me, it's the one, the old Paul Runs, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe On Call. And tonight, well, you got me. You've got Doug. Hey, Doug, how you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm here. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. And lastly, of course, we have David in the chat room. I'm sure there's going to be other people in the chat room at the moment. Takes usually a little bit of time for the chat room to fill up. And Chris, yeah, Chris is over there on the chat room for Twitch already. We've got 3 people, including myself. Ah, and I don't know who that is. Dave. Okay, Dave. Okay. I saw a call sign or user ID, whatever they call it, on Twitch, which I did not recognize, but now I do. So, and of course it's raining.
It might be me.
Well, it's raining here. I can hear that. And hopefully we won't lose power or anything goofy like that. That'd be awful. So we're not supposed to get any lightning until late tonight. So everything should be over before we have any lightning and have the possibility of losing power. But you never know. But anyhow, to get on to the more positive note, of course, we have Gamers of Winter coming up this weekend. So if you're in the Harrisburg area, relatively, within an hour's drive of Harrisburg, and you don't have anything else to do, come and join us. Hopefully you'll hear this before that time. That means it's running both Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So, and I will be there Saturday and Sunday. So if you want to see me and meet my lovely face, you can head out there Saturday or Sunday, and I will be there. I'll be having my Starfleet Battle stuff, my Federation Commander stuff, my Starfleet Marine stuff, also 1 or 2 decks of Starfleet Battle Force. So if you want to play any of those games, come on out. Let's play. And there's also other games that I definitely enjoy playing, like Puerto Rico. Oh geez, where's some of the ones we've been playing lately? And I keep forgetting because oh darn it. I was gonna say Galactic Conquest, but that's not the game that gets played every once in a while, which is like a 6-hour game.
Light Imperium.
Thank you. Hey, I don't play it. Come on. The last time I saw people play that game, actually, no, sorry, I can't say that. I was gonna say, like the first time I saw people play the game. I remember Barry playing that for easily, I think it was 8 hours. It was, they play. Oh, we have to take a break and get something to eat, and then they came back.
If we really wanted to push the envelope, I could set up Antietam. That's an entire day.
Oh, you want a couple?
Gettysburg.
Yeah, you want a couple days? Get F&E out. That's.
Yeah, there's that too. Huh?
No, hey, come on.
That is a suggestion.
Oh, understood. Well, I can't say I play F&E with anyone because I don't know how to play F&E. So I can't say I would.
F&E is like really simple as far as like the mechanics go. It's probably the simplest thing that DB's put out. It's just that the size and complexity of the game overall is kind of pretty large.
Right. Well, it's like, come on.
But as far as learning to play, I can teach somebody to play in like 10 minutes.
Chris is saying F&E is a beast of a game.
Pretty easy.
Yeah, well, F&E is kind of like SFB in that overall, the game mechanics are pretty simple. They really are. You can cover the game mechanics of SFB in like 2 pages. You can cover it in 2 pages. But then you get into the rules, the other rules like interactions. In the case of F&E, a lot of those things have to do with logistics, timing of what you can do, what can when you can do a conversion, and things, all these kind of things that are kind of idiosyncrasies for playing the game properly. I still remember the first time I played SFB. I played it so bad, and this was just me by myself. This is when I bought back in college. I bought the original Commander's Edition rules, the Volume 1, and I played the basic edition of the rules. That means no overloads, no mid-turn speed changes, this basic stuff. And I was playing, classic battle, Federation versus Klingon, and what happens? I get it so they get range 0. What happens with range 0? You can't fire. You can't fire your heavy weapons because there was no overloads in the basic game either. So you can't fire at range 0 without it being overloaded. At least when it comes to the Fed. So it was, yeah, Chris. This was before ADB created the cadet training manual. Back in the days of Commander's Edition. So, now,
when you were on.
Yeah, when I was in college, I bought it myself. The only reason I remember this is because I remember where I played it. I played it in my room at International House in Philadelphia. This was my sophomore year. Okay, Drexel's a 5-year college, so it goes freshman, sophomore, pre-junior, junior, senior. When I was a sophomore, in the sophomore year, they ran out of spaces at the dorms. So Drexel University had to go and rent a floor from the International House. They leased out the floor for the year, and they assigned an RA that stayed at International House, and that was our dorm. And that's the only reason I remember it was because I remember I was in that room. I was in that area, in my room when I was doing this, and so that means it was my sophomore year that I was playing SFB, which actually was kind of cool because of what I did was I had co-op. I got a co-op program. My co-op program was actually working for DPSC in South Philly. And unfortunately, a friend of mine told me that his grandmother had a room for me. He stayed with his grandmother, and they had a room that I could sack out on. Which unfortunately I didn't have to pay anything, but I'd make up breakfast every morning. Usually it was like eggs and scrapple, which was my first introduction to scrapple. Actually, scrapple was pretty good. I'd fry it up nice and you have to fry it up so you get the nice crispness on the outside, because without that, it doesn't really. That's the point. It's really mushy. It doesn't have much flavor. And I have that for breakfast. That's some eggs. But anyway, during that time, Paul Keck actually stayed at. I don't know how he got it, but he actually stayed at International House. I forget. I think, yeah. I'm not sure how, but he did. And actually, we get together at International House, and we'd sit there in the main gathering space, and we played SFB. We start early. We'd start around 6, between 6 and 8 o'clock, and we'd sit there and we would do it until early morning. And early morning, I'd go home. I'd get on the. I grabbed the subway. I'd actually get on the subway early in the morning, and head back up to North Philly, because that's where my friend's grandmother's place was North Philly. So that was it. That was interesting way. You know, it was kind of cool. Excuse me. I'm seeing a reading here. Say Dave said I got into SFU by accident. I thought it was a new edition of the FOSSA game. Wow.
Wow.
Well, that accident, my dear friend,
Yeah.
saved your butt, because I'm sorry, as I explained last week to Jeff, um, the FOSSA version game sucked. Oh, I played SFB, and then I bought the FOSSA, Star Trek tactical game. I think that's the name of it, something like that. Um, and I, I tried to play it, and I'm doing this. I'm learning how you move and what you're supposed to do, and I'm going, this is insane. Because the biggest thing, the big issue that I really felt with it was that you had to power your shields using the power that's generated from your ship. There was no like SFB where you have that for a certain power level you have so many shield boxes. You don't. And you have to. You're powering one arc of the shield. So, to say the very least, it was insane. You know. So for that I tried to understand the rules. I never played anyone it. I just tried to play it by myself to understand the rules. And I realized, no, this is insane, because it really makes no sense. And SFV makes a heck of a lot more sense overall and how the mechanics worked. So I never played that game ever again. I don't obviously I probably threw it out at some point because I don't think. Yeah, yeah. Dave mentioned how you powered each shield individually when it comes to the FOSSA game. Yeah. Chris is saying that it was really meant for ship-to-ship combat portion of RPG. Well, I still think the mechanics sucked. It doesn't matter if it was designed to be part of an RPG. What is it? Oh, jeez. This is awful. Traveler, that's it. Because Traveler is RPG, correct?
Traveler is, but PASA actually, I think, had a Star Trek role-playing game.
Oh yeah. I know FOSSA did, but
which was not too horrible from what I understand, but I've never played that one.
Right, but my understanding is that Travel also had tactical combat that you could play, and I'm willing to bet that a heck of a lot better than what FOSSA had. At least my understanding. I never heard anyone complaining about it. Of course, at the same time, I never heard anyone complain about the FOSSA because I never talked to anyone about it. Oh, I used to play.
Very much apples and oranges.
Yeah, I played RPG one time. Actually, many times. Um, Rollmaster was my favorite game system. Was Rollmaster.
Yeah.
Just because of the critical hit system. I mean, critical hit, critical failure system. It was fun. It was a fun game.
Oh yeah, Rollmaster is brutal when it comes to that stuff. But yeah, it's also fun. I think the thing that really was great about Rollmaster back in the day when I first came across it was that compared to first edition Dungeons and Dragons, it gave you as a player a lot more control over the character arc as far as like what the character could do. It had like
yeah,
essentially a crafting system that wasn't just roll on a table and that's your character's like profession outside of engineering.
Right, right, and also,
Actually,
I'm sorry. Continue. Yeah.
but basically, it also kind of it had a thing that went along with the lines of a pet peeve of mine, which is the where people try to like over engineer the abstract gaming thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we talked about this maybe a few months ago about like how a lot of people get caught in a trap at least once in a while of um, trying to rewrite the rules because you know I'm an engineer and I think that it would work this way instead of that way, or they try to go into nitty gritty details where a box is a unit but they want to totally redefine how the thing works, whatever the thing is. And in D&D was a very abstract system to start with, even though it comes out of a, you know, basically a tabletop wargaming thing into the role-playing aspect. And Rollmaster gave you an incredible amount of detailing and customization for your character without necessarily going into the an insane level of detailing.
Mm-hmm.
And it also just had a totally different take on combat and everything else. And,
Yep.
you know, combat being very deadly.
Oh yeah.
Actually, in Rollmaster, if you're reckless, if you go in with the dungeon crawl attitude, you will just get basically butchered initially, then learn and redo what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I also liked about Rollmaster was the way they did training up and things like that. So you didn't just get experience points and all of a sudden you're on the next level. No, you trained up for different abilities is what you would do. And that was something.
You had to choose, spend your skill points.
Right, and you would
spend skill points on stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you would, and usually what would happen is that during the campaign, you'd have people, let's say, in their downtime, okay, we've settled in for the night, basically have people working on their skill. That's one thing they'll say, they'll tell the dungeon, okay, I'm going to work on this skill or this skill or this skill, for the day. So they're kind of the idea is practicing to work up on that skill, to improve that until you get to the next level, or you improve, So that was kind of cool. And I agreed, especially with the combat system. The great thing about it wasn't just hit points. You could do these critical damage, and I mean, like, cut off a guy's arm, cut off a leg. You can actually do critical failures where you cut off your own arm. Things like that, or stab yourself. You can do some crazy stuff, and that was part of the fun of it.
Very interesting. Yeah, and the magic system could be brutal too.
Mm-hmm.
Quite brutal.
Right. Oh.
Especially with spell failures.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I forgot about those because I was never a wizard. I was always a warrior of some sort. Usually a paladin was what I was. Oh jeez. Darth, don't look out the window. Paladin. Because I get that. I got that name from one of the campaigns we were in. And what did I do? Is I hear a noise outside the window when we're at this inn. And I look out the window. What do I see? I see vampires crawling up the wall. And of course, what happens? I get attacked. And it's like, and the GM goes, Okay. That's it. Okay, no, we're backing up here because no one's that dumb to actually poke their head out the window to see what's out the window. So he let me because basically I died. I died because I was basically stupid. So he let me let us start over again because basically it wasn't going to look very good if in the campaign I died. One of the like 3 characters died. It makes things more difficult. So
hard to do in that game.
Yeah, so he went back, and then ever since that point, I was because I named the guy Darf, Darf, Darf. So I have nicknamed him. Don't look out Darf. Don't look out the window, Paladin. So it was fun. We had a lot of fun playing that game. But anyway, one topic I actually wanted to get on for this evening was of that I was thinking about something I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and actually I think 3 weeks ago now because that's when Gary was on, and that was the whole idea of a SFB game that's more like Starfire in the way that damage allocation and that kind of thing is done. And I thought maybe Call to Arms, that's it. Call to Arms Starfleet could do the job. I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, maybe that could do it. And then I look at it and yes and no. The problem is that with Call to Arms, it still has too much detail. You have your phasers, you have your photons, you have your drones, all of this. And I'd like to have it even more generic. If we want to still have the whole idea of arcs, in my mind, what I would want is simplified when it comes to the arcs. You basically have an offensive potential from each arc that you're going to allow. Because I think I forget with Call to Arms what they use. Because I'm pretty sure it's not 60-degree arcs. I think it's like 45-degree arcs or 90-degree arcs. I forget which. I forgot what their increment is. I'm just going to see if I don't see I don't. Okay, it has movement here. I'm just want combat. Eligible target. Firing arc. Okay. That's looking at. So I don't see them describing the arcs. That's why I just want to find that. I don't see it. So that's what I would like to see. We can still have drones and have plasmas. The whole idea in that case was that drones would be basically seeking weapons that are longer range, versus plasmas which are shorter range, but do more damage. And I'm not sure how many, how that would work. Would I want that to be more like a direct fire thing, or would I want it actually to be seeking weapons, units on the board? But still haven't figured that one out. But yeah, because I think that would be great. As I said, the whole idea of damage allocation of just following the line. You don't do any. There's no die roll. You just go. The only thing is you figure out how much. The only thing you do a die roll for is how much damage do you do to the ship. You subtract out the current defensive shield, basically about a shield. Maybe have a defensive factor for fighting off seeking weapons, or in the case of when you're close in, like say range 2, or maybe even range 1, and say, okay, you can add your defensive factor to your offensive factor, and you can add them, and you can basically increase the amount of damage you do to your opponent at that range, and so forth. So interest. It's an idea of a game that I would like to try to do, because I still have this idea for I call it SFU ships, Starfleet Universe ships, which is basically simplified ships. One of the big things for that was also that it would be pre-plotted movement. The movement wouldn't be that big. I was thinking about the maximum of maybe 6 moves per turn. And I was thinking about maybe kind of make it like Silent Death, in that you only fire at the end of the turn. Things like that simplify it. And I'm just the big thing for me when it comes to that idea that I have is how much of Starfleet battles can be retained, because I still would like to have it so that you can retain a lot of what makes SFB SFB, but I want to avoid certain things, that definitely FedCon was doing its best to do, but it was unsuccessful. One of the things that FedCon was unsuccessful in my mind was, I think, the original idea, and I've never heard Steve Cole, Ken Burnside, anyone from ADB. Ken Burnside was with ADB at one time, so just to remind people of that fact. And that is that they wanted it so that you didn't have an EA. All you did was you would set your speed, then based on your speed, then you still have to kind of do an energy. You still have to do with the managing of the energy during the turn. But you didn't have to do an EA. But as soon as you added multi-turn arming weapons, that goes out the window, and that's where FedCom fell down in my mind, because I said I feel like they wanted it to be simplified to that degree, where you just set your speed. Okay, you have this much energy afterwards, and then you can use that energy any way you see fit during the turn. To me, that's what it feels like was the original design. But then, that's great when it comes to disruptors. That's great with drones. That's great with phasers. But as soon as you get multi-turn armed weapons like photons, like hellbores, like plasma torpedoes, you're screwed. Now, the tough part about that is that you have to do multi-turn arming weapons, in that you can, if you want to, you can do what Ken Burnside did with I forget which of his systems it was using. Maybe it was Strike Fleet or something.
Squadron Strike.
Squadron Strike, maybe Squadron Strike.
Squadron.
But the whole idea, one way of a possible solution, but it doesn't quite work, would be to have it so that it's multi-turn, quote unquote, arming, as in you keep track of if you can fire it or not. It's kind of a cooldown period. But then, usually with a cooldown period, you have to you have to then pay the energy. You have it so that it requires the full, what normally in SFB would be the full 2 turns of energy in a single turn, which makes things totally insane? Or do you do it?
Well, the big thing about SFB compared to most of the other space games or ship-to-ship kind of games is the fact, the core of the matter is that your energy allocation is the core of the game. And as you take damage and become less capable with the energy, it changes what you can do tactically in a big way. So if you take that element out, like you're trying to do with, say, FedCom, yeah, you can do that, I guess, but on the other hand, it's not really going to be the same because you're basically gutting the game. Ooh, excuse me. I just shoved down some food.
Understood. Though there's some things I think.
You want to talk about design stuff over gamers? I'll be there like for 13 hours a day, and we'll have some time to talk. But the thing is the Star Trek nature of the universe, when you get away from what was script fu versus what is Starfleet battles, where you have very, very defined everything. And if you're trying to recreate it for a role-playing game, you might as well just pick a flavor for the moment and use that, because you could literally almost just say, okay, here's what happened on an F&E scale where your ship's crippled now or whatever. Or you could have the direct drama. I would really suggest, if you wanted to use it for a role-playing group, that you might use the FedCom system for your combat, because it's simpler, it's quicker, and as a GM, you don't necessarily have to roll it out in the same level of detail for purposes of going along with the narrative. If you're familiar with how the SFB thing works, how the FedCom thing works, you can kind of see where it's going and just advance it to that point.
Right.
Because for the role players, they're not going to be there for the tactical wargaming aspect of it necessarily.
Agreed.
But if you're trying to make a different game, then that's a whole other topic on, goals, directions, where do you want to end up at the end of it.
Right.
And, oh my God, we could probably talk for half the day or all day about that on Saturday if you want, after we get the initial rush of people in.
Understood.
I was going to actually plug a little something.
Sure, go ahead.
If you're listening tonight and you don't know what we're talking about with Gamers Winter, it's a very small gaming event that I run, once a year, was twice a year, might become twice a year again, depending on turnout. But, we have role-playing games, tabletop games, board games, card games, whatnot. There's no gambling. It's like your convention you like to go to, and then divide the numbers by about several thousand, and that's us. We're running it this weekend at the Your Turn Cafe. We leased the building from them. This is not a normal in-shop kind of event for the place. It's a the Your Turn Cafe is one of these places that's set up under a game store / cafe model, like, coffee shop, restaurant, and basically they have very limited hours. They're like, 3 to 9 during the weekdays. I'm not even sure what their weekend hours are, but we're basically expanding our hours, and it's an exclusive event, so you can't hang out in the building if you're not like part of the convention or working for the place. And that's basically it. We'll be there like Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And if you want to get some SFB in, I think Paul has some time now. Actually.
Definitely.
Yeah. And there's that. I've tried to suggest for years if there would be enough interest in a tournament, could have a live face-to-face tournament instead of online, or just run a version of the captain's game where everybody round robins it. For one round you play your ship with your race, and then the next round you play as the opponent or somebody else. And, some people would start off as the opponent, and you basically switch back and forth. How that could go, That could be an interesting event to run at this. But then again, we really need maybe a committed turnout for people.
Right.
There's a little bit of chicken and thing in some of this. I think looking at some of the comments I had over the years, like some of the miniatures guys won't come out because you can't guarantee them that they have their niche miniatures game there.
Right.
Then they say, well, if it's not going to be run by somebody, I'm not going to come out for it and demo or do something else. So, yeah. But on the other hand, we're a pretty convenient drive for anybody from, West Virginia to New York City in that corridor. And the closer you are to Harrisburg, the easier the drive is. I mean, you're coming in from Reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Barry comes up from York, which is about half hour from it. Sometimes we get a few people that come in to say hi to Paul and talk about SFB or FedCom or do some of that stuff.
Yep.
But there's that, and kind of funny that you mentioned the whole thing about that, because have you heard about the current scandal-ish thing in the D&D world?
You mean the OGL thing? Open game
the
license?
OGL thing.
Yeah, open game license.
Yeah, we're like basically WotC and Hasbro were talking about trying to revoke the open license that they set up in perpetuity before Hasbro owned them, decades ago.
Right.
By the way, I think it'll horribly fail because of those two words, or that one term, in perpetuity.
Yep.
Try to put out a new version of D&D and put everybody who wants to put out products that are connected to D&D into this incredibly onerous contract. And now there's all these different groups and companies that were working under that old open license are now talking about just going to something totally different. I think that's awesome in a way.
Well, at the same time, here's the one thing about licenses, and that is, okay, in theory, this is in theory, I don't know enough about lawyer talk, they can produce another edition of D&D, which was not under OGL. Now, there's one problem. The older editions are still going to be under that OGL. They can't change the license of the current product, current version of the product. I don't think that's possible. In which case, what could happen is they have a splinter. They splinter off, those companies that still want to produce products for D&D, they're going to say we don't support the latest version of D&D because of we can't do without, we can't do it basically, and they're going to support only the older versions of it because of the OGL is going to be there. So
among other things, there's like a whole bunch of different things going on with it. And there's like so many different lawyers coming at it from like different angles. I mean, if you ask a dozen lawyers for their opinion on pretty much anything, you'll get like 20 different frickin' responses. And that's kind of where that's at in the community. I mean, my YouTube feed is just filling up with some of that, and just random feeds about people that are just angry about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what's kind of interesting is they can't copyright some of the basic mechanics and basic terminology. So the whole thing is a thorny issue. And I think they may end up either completely backtracking it, or it'll be settled in court, and there will be probably a big smackdown on Hasbro because of the term in perpetuity, and the fact that a lot of the stuff that they want to go after people for is stuff that can't really be completely copyrighted, and some of it may be open now anyway. So, yeah.
Yep.
But remember, hey, at one point, remember this. This is not the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It's just one of the more blatant, evil kind of cash grab things, attempts, because they were basically trying to set it so that if you come in under their new license, they had the potential to take your work away from you and sell it themselves.
Excuse me? Is that the new license that they want to put forward? They say like you created some IP, you create some expansion onto our IP, and we can take.
Here's your parts of this. Here's the major parts of it and why people are pissed. Okay, under the old license, it was open in perpetuity. You don't have to pay them anything. It basically helps them to grow the community, from which Wizards basically they benefited tremendously, because all these secondary companies that opened up to doing stuff, they drove the brand name Dungeons and Dragons, which drives sales for Wizards of the Coast. Okay, and what happened to spark all this off was there was a leak of the license and a leak of a boardroom meeting where one of the Hasbro executives basically made a comment to the effect that they were quite disappointed that they wanted to try to monetize D&D the way that console games and what are those games on your phone called? Console games?
Oh.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
App games.
Yeah, the apps.
The ones you see all these little commercials for, and they're monetized 9 ways to Sunday. They're just blatantly fishing for whales and trying to basically soak you for everything they can along the way. They can't. They've been unable to monetize it now, and that gave birth to them rewriting this thing, which was then leaked. And the gist of this is, it's no longer an open license. They still call it an open license, but it's not granted in perpetuity anymore.
Right.
And hi, kitty cat. They basically come out and say, okay, you can still make stuff with our permission. If we don't like your product, we can tell you to stop flat out.
Right.
If we do like your product, we can make our own copy of it and sell it without paying you a dime for it, ever. And then if you make X dollar or more annually, you have to pay us a percentage in royalties. And they set that initial cap at like $750,000. So if I wrote a module and threw it up on Amazon and I sold 500,000 copies of the thing at $10 each, I'd owe them X percentage of it. But if they saw it and decided to, they liked it and they think it's worth marketing, they could send me a cease and desist letter and say, you don't own that anymore, we own that. And they could sell it and claim the, X dollar off of it. Extremely onerous, one-sided document, which under basic contract law, from my understanding of it, where they fail in this is basically two different ways. They fail because the original license is in perpetuity, and it states for Dungeons and Dragons and the D20 mechanic and so forth and so on. They don't have a revocation clause in it. The other, they basically they gave open creative control to everybody for it. They literally gave it the fuck away.
Mm-hmm.
Now they want to try to weasel a way into making people pay them and give them their stuff. So the old license will pretty much probably end up standing up in court and not be revocable. And the other side of it is, from what has been leaked and discussed online by lots of people and many, many hours worth of videos that you probably don't want to go into tonight because you only have a certain amount of time you want to be on, is that it's incredibly onerous and one-sided. It's utterly one-sided thing. And they can change, one of the other caveats is they can change the terms of their open license, their 1.1 open license, at any time. Mm-hmm. So if their threshold today is $750,000 and they decide that they're not making enough money, they could say, okay, $25,000 is the threshold. If you make $25,000, you have to pay us a royalty, blah, blah, blah. You make $1, you need to send us a dime. Yeah, it could be. And one of the basics of contract law, when it comes down to it, is if you D&D undermonetized. That's what the executive was saying, because it's bad enough for them that you're spending, maybe a few $100 to $1,000 to buy all the stuff every time they republish the next version. That's not good enough for them. What they want to do is they want to try to figure out ways with the one D&D thing to stick you for everything they can like it's a console game, to make more revenue coming in and soak the DMs and players. But the thing where they fail is one-sided contracts can be voided by a judge as onerous. So, like, if I wrote a contract for you, between you and I had all the say in everything, and you have no say in anything other than you signing the contract, you might actually be able to get that contract voided, mm-hmm. depending on the judge and, politics and whatnot.
Right.
But, your average mortgage contract was incredibly close to that, but, falls short of it, because sometimes people do beat the mortgage companies when the mortgage companies make mistakes. Don't, guarantee it because of politics and a whole other kettle of fish. But no, that's basically it. The funny thing is I have a bunch of notes where I was getting ready to start pulling together a combined RPG and wargaming system that's scalable. and simplified way down. It has nothing to do with, like, it would not fall under the open license to start with.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that's funny.
Yeah.
That's like my B project starting with gamers is the A project is going to be the book about the all the estate issue stuff.
Yeah, dude. That's a novel, a huge novel, just by itself. You know, it's insane. But anyhow, yeah, it's not.
Yes,
To,
it is.
yeah, to me, it sounds like this Hasbro was to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. You know.
Yeah, that's another analogy that's been thrown out there a lot, and they've been mocked for that. Have you guys never heard the story of the golden goose? Yeah, or the goose that lays the golden egg? Yeah. It's the Hasbro thing. Like, one idiot executive who doesn't understand the game, doesn't understand the culture, who probably busy sipping a $100 latte at the time with her pinky finger out. Basically, they totally just screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been like, basically a big old shark. I'll use the word shark instead of the other equal term I was thinking, but a sharknado that's just gathered more and more momentum as the last few weeks have gone by, and more people have looked at it, and a lot of these people that are talking about it aren't just, you have a lot of angry content creators out there. You have a lot of angry channels out there that talk about D&D that don't want to have their channels taken away or be told they have to shut down or anything. But the real thing is, you have a lot of lawyers that are involved in the gaming community that are looking at this going, oh no, Kimosabi, this is not going to fly. Yeah, that's the big part right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, in my mind, Hasbro's is doing it out of fear. They see their numbers declining. That's the only reason I can imagine ever trying to do this. Or if they say, they might do something, they will see something stupid, which is, how do we make more money versus, with less effort. I understand the whole idea of under monetizing. Well, yeah, at the same time, there's something about community that itself has a price. Yeah, you might be able to monetize more. Monetize your current your the next IP, or let's say your IP better by changing the way the licensing works. But the question is, how long will that last? Because now what you're doing is you're putting a barrier on who can create content, who can make money off that content, and therefore your overall, when it comes to that industry that's around the IP that you created, well, now it's going to shrink. Because only certain people who have the money to invest in creating a product and paying the license fees, paying for, getting through these onerous deals and hoping that nothing happens, because Lord knows, Starfleet Battles has that one thing that happened with Starfleet Battles, which was not Starfleet Battles, it was Starfleet Commander. Starfleet Commander originally wasn't under Paramount, but all of a sudden, what they wanted to do, Paramount got involved, and they won the licensing for the full you know Star Trek IP, and it didn't sell as well as they expected. Lord knows that version that came out was buggy, which that does not help. Um, and this is before the day of Steam, where you actually could then go and just okay, it's buggy. Okay, we're releasing an update in a week, and this will fix all the problems. This was before the advent of the internet. If your software that you shipped was buggy, how could you can't update that software very easily? You know, you can actually
those days.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if it didn't work on your computer or it crashed, you couldn't play. And that's one thing that happened to me is I had that release and I installed it and it crashed. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm not playing it. And that doesn't, especially the gaming community, holy freaking cow, you want to kill yourself. That's one way you do yourself. And since it didn't produce, didn't sell very well, what happened is Paramount then go in, okay, thank you, and pull the license. Because they are allowed to do that every single year. They get to review it and say, okay, well, are you doing right by our IP? Well, you're not making enough money. Okay, I'm sorry. Boom. They pull the license, and all of a sudden you can't create games. You can't. The product that you produced, which is based on the IP of somebody else, now becomes zero. Zilch. It's not worth a dime. And they closed up shop. The Starfleet Command. Yeah. Did I say Starfleet Commander?
That happens.
Well.
And that's the kind of thing that happens when executive suits get involved instead of like gaming people. There's that.
Okay, but at the same time,
it's
at the same time, here's the thing.
on.
The problem with some gaming people is they don't think about the monetization, meaning actually having the ability to take a product and actually earn money from the product. And you have to do that for the product to grow. You have to have game designers be paid for the thoughts and the IP that they create. So and Lord knows, I know trust me, I know the thinking behind it. No, not necessarily the thinking, but kind of the thinking behind it. Because I'm a developer. I'm a programmer. The whole concept, the whole idea of marketing is a foreign concept to me. I definitely don't know how to market things properly. I really don't. And that's why, SFU Online and FedCom Online and things like that have not grown as large as they could be. And that's because I don't know how to market. But of course, the real question.
Well, yeah, if they really wanted that future success, they would have to do a marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And I don't know how. Right, I don't know how to do it. And the thing is, to have someone to help me with it would probably cost me more than I'd ever be able to make back from it. Because that's also, of course, an issue.
It all depends.
Well, it's an issue with Starfleet Battles and the Starfleet universe. It's a limited, it's a relatively small group. Even with past, you might say you got 100,000 people total. And the question is, how many of those will ever come back? And of course, how many of those are still alive? Yes.
Well, actually, an interesting thought is how much did ADB ever advertise over their lifetime in the right places? Because I remember seeing, the occasional ad for them in the old Dragon magazines and some other places, but that's still a niche community thing. But now you could reach literally millions of people by just, you know, throwing up an ad on YouTube where they basically stick it into monetized, you know, stuff.
Yeah,
based off Google searches. So,
okay, 1
million gamers will see your ad, where 20 years ago, maybe 30,000 gamers might see it through a Dragon magazine or something like that. I don't know the numbers for the Dragon magazines, but, you know, you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understood.
How much does that?
Well, that's
a good team putting together marketing stuff.
Right, understood. But here, okay, 2 things. 1, when it comes to SFB marketing, ads don't really work because they have tried ads on Google, and basically they got nothing. They got no return on it, and you know, these link sites, it's awful. The way I feel like when it comes to marketing SFB, what really requires is a good social media presence, and that means they did do some marketing, some YouTube videos, but it's one of those things that you have to do constant YouTube videos, at least like one a week at minimum, talking about your product, talking about yourself. You have to have basically a social media presence. It's what a constant social media presence, and that's not what ADB is. And Lord knows, maybe one of these days that there'll be someone to buy up, ADB and the IP that they have, and push it forward, because there's still a gaming community out there. There's still gamers, people who like playing tactical board games, and
yeah, but it's also such a glut too.
Yeah.
It really is.
Oh, understood. And Lord knows you have to have so much competition out there, given that SFB is so old when it comes to the tactical board games. It's very mature, compared to today's games, and it might require a rethinking, because to me the beauty of SFB, and always has been the beauty of SFB, has been, of course, the detail that's actually ingrained in SFB. And that's what I always considered. All that detail is what gives me the feeling of realism. And I feel, and this is what I feel about it. I'm not quite sure if this is the case. And let me just put that out there right now. And that is that I feel like most people, for that kind of level of detail, they want it to be a computer-based game. And I think even a computer-based game, holy freaking cow. Can you imagine trying to get all those rules that are currently part of SFB into a computer-based game? If I had been working for the past 10 years for implementing the rules, I might have been able to get it done. I might be able to create an engine which actually implemented all the rules. But as I said, that's a lot of work.
Oh yeah, it would be a ton of work, but I think a very large development team that's experienced with that sort of thing could probably pull it off. The flip side of it, though, is I think if you get it into a computer-based real-time simulator game, it would stop being SFB real.
Right, exactly. When you change it to be real-time, that's when you choose it. Now, here's the thing: real-time is not always required. It isn't. Not in computer games. They're not all. It doesn't always require. Just think about I want to say ecom, but I don't think is that what it's called? um, where you have basically
yeah.
What?
You could go turn by turn and have your
Right.
call for action.
Right. You say, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm going here, 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 here. You plan out where you're going, what you're going to do, and then you go execute. Boom. And you execute your turn. And there's computer-based games that are exactly like that. You know, heck, even BattleTech is like that. So, I, turn-based games are still very, very viable. You know, it might require doing something like what I said, which is what I like, which is plotting, plot your movement, plot your actions. You know, make it a little more of a challenge in that category in that case. But anyway, I
don't
think
think it needs to be plotted. You can still have it as free movement and free action. It's just you're making your call when it comes to be your turn to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole other issue.
Agreed. Okay, well, with that, I think we will wrap it up for this evening. Doug, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I can't wait to see you on Saturday.
Yep.
Yes, I'll be there both.
Saturday.
I will be there Saturday and
Hopefully
Sunday. Just let you know.
Oh, I know.
No, I just thought of something I forgot to do. I meant to send an email to a guy about this weekend. So maybe I'll just give him a call. Not now. Probably tomorrow. Okay. But anyway, Doug, you have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, it was another one of those nights where we talked over many, many topics, got in one minor topic that I wanted to discuss, which was, that idea I have for the game. And we got to talk about even the whole OGL kerfuffle, which is interesting. I could definitely find out more information about what Hasbro is wanting to do, because I don't follow YouTubers that talk about that kind of stuff. I follow wholly different kinds of YouTubers. Usually they're not about games. But anyway, with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.